Merry Christmas, you filthy animal.
Hi guys, sorry, I had a little technical difficulty. I gotta figure out how to fix that freaking widget. I don't like where it's at. It's in an inconvenient place. I never use it. I don't even know how I got it. It came with some update. This is why I'd be putting off updates. Whew. Hi, you guys. How are you? Mike. Guess what date it is? Hump day. How y'all doing? I see Cement Shoes. Hey, Cool Gamer. Hey, Sam. Hi, Amelia Sparkle. How's everybody doing tonight? Thank you guys all for being here. I appreciate it. This this live will be far more organized. Not only do we actually have the closing arguments, but the jury has reached a verdict. And when I went live, they were in the middle of it. So we're going to start with, obviously, the closing arguments, which I have to say were actually quite compelling on both sides, actually. Of course, they decided to do the closing arguments like an hour, maybe an hour and a half after I was like, I'm out. And I want to thank Sam again for coming up here and rescuing me. I was a little distracted during the live. There was something going on and I wasn't giving it my all, but Sam came up here and held down the fort. And I thank you so much for that, Sam. I'm forever in your debt because that was a mess. And yeah, thank you so much for that. All right. Let me get to this verdict, to this closing arguments. All right. Let me see. They read the jury instructions first, so I got to skip through that. All right. Let me get rid of this here. Whew. Okay. So I hope you guys are all doing good. Right? Hey, Heather, whatever. Hey, if you guys haven't already, do me a favor. Give your girl a thumbs up. I appreciate it. It'll make me throw a temper tantrum. Just kidding. I'm too old for a temper tantrum. Although I can still pull one. Okay. All right. So you guys know I'm terrible at skipping. I'm perfect. Hey, Kimberly Jerome. Good to see ya. I'm terribly horrible at skipping on YouTube. But let me tell you where I'm good at skipping. You know, like how you can record shows on your DVR. I used to be super good at just nailing it every single time, even on the fastest skip. But for whatever reason, freaking YouTube eludes me. So we're not quite, there's like a tiny, tiny bit of whatchamacallit left of the jury instructions. Hold on, let me just let me see if I can get it a little better. All right.
And you are ready to render a verdict. You are ready to bring justice to the victims and to their families. Now, the first thing that you are going to do when you go back to deliberate is you're going to select your foreperson. And that foreperson is going to read the instructions again to you. And these instructions are going to serve as your roadmap.
Safe, coolest.
So where does this roadmap lead you? It's going to lead you first to definitions, knowingly. I put up the entire definition, but I want you to focus on one word, aware. He is aware that his conduct is reasonably certain to cause the result. Intentionally. Focus on the desire to engage in the conduct or cause the result. And how do we know what desire is? Desire can be seen the moment somebody picks up a gun, wraps their finger around the trigger, and pulls. We've seen that. We've seen that in each of these scenes. 3 times that desire at Melissa's. 2 times that desire at Claudine's. 3 times that desire at Griselda. And 1 final time that desire with Janelle. What's murder? A person commits the offense of murder if he intentionally and knowingly causes the death of an individual. And what about capital murder? More than one murder pursuant to the same scheme or course of conduct. And I'm going to refer you to page 3, paragraph 5 of your jury instructions. It says that you must unanimously find that he committed at least two of these murders pursuant to the same scheme or course of conduct. And we believe you will. We believe that you will find every single one of these pursuant to the same scheme or course of conduct.
Cement shoes.
And here are all the murders that you have. On September 3rd in Webb County, Juan David Ortiz intentionally or knowingly caused the death of Melissa Ramirez by shooting her. On the 13th of 2018, he caused the death of Claudine Luera by shooting her. On September 15th, he caused the death of Griselda Hernandez by shooting or striking her. And on September 15th, he intentionally and knowingly caused the death of Janelle Ortiz by shooting her. And all of these were done pursuant to the same scheme or course of conduct. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the same scheme or course of conduct.
I'm just going to speed her up just a little bit, okay? Not much.
Remember that you can ask for evidence. I want you to write this down. States Exhibit 110. Disc 7, where he tells us the entire story. That's the story. As for States Exhibit 116, the transcript, you can read what he says. You can read it as you follow along. You saw all of us referring to it while we were taking notes, flipping the pages. You didn't get to do that during the trial, but you're going to get to go back and do that now. And he will tell you in there why he did this. At least 4 times he's going to say it in there. 4 times he's going to say it in there. I was cleaning up the streets. 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 And now we'll also talk about...
I never noticed this tire that was right here before.
Because as we stood here, the first day of trial, we stood there without a single piece of evidence, and he was a free and innocent, or he was an innocent man. And as we started this trial, we started pulling together the puzzle pieces. Every single witness that came up here gave you some pieces to put together and put together and put together. And we accept this burden. We accept the burden of having to prove this case beyond a reasonable doubt, ladies and gentlemen. Why? Because we believe we've surpassed it. If the presumption of innocence is at sea level, we are standing atop the Mount Everest of evidence. It is all there. You can look at everything.
That's a pretty dramatic statement.
And as every single witness came up here and handed you a new piece of the puzzle, a new piece of evidence, what do you start to see? You start to see what he saw that day. In his own words, a monster. Now, If you don't believe that one of these, the two or more of these were done pursuant to the same scheme or course of conduct, or you have reasonable doubt, then you'll be able to determine each of these individually. But let's talk about reasonable doubt. You have to ask yourself 3 questions. Do I have doubts? Are they reasonable? And do they go to an element of the case? I'm just going to ask you to use your common sense. I'm just going to ask you to use your perspective to determine this case.
I do like that she used that.
Now, you are also charged with determining
visual
witness credibility. So what does that mean? You are the ultimate judges of the facts. You can believe some, all, or none. Everything we brought you, consistent, corroborated, credible.
Yeah, I never noticed
Let's
that
talk about
tire
Erica.
sitting right in the middle of the.
You all saw the trooper's
it's
body
on
cam.
his-
When
you
she
know,
comes
it's an
up to him
unfortunate
and she tells him
placement
what
for the
happened to
background.
her, everything she said in that body camera, consistent with what she told you from that witness stand. Everything she told investigators, corroborated by Ortiz's own statements. Everything. And credible, you get to decide. But she subjected herself to
I
Mr.
just want to
Bettis'
point out she's
cross-examination.
clearly bilingual.
She told you her
and
faults.
yet she has no problem
She told
saying
you her
corroborate correctly. Just
And
wanna
more than
point that
anything,
out there.
she came up here to tell you her
Petty
truth.
Betty moment.
What happened to her that night?
Yeah, you see, it's right here where my look.
You also get to decide Ortiz's confession and whether it was freely and voluntarily made. And we submit to you that it was. It was obtained without any promise, coercion, or
I
intimidation.
have no idea what it's there for.
I'm going to refer you to what Captain Calderon said on the stand. It was an accommodation, not an inducement. There was no quid pro quo. And let's talk about these accommodations that defense brought up. They brought them up in their opening statements. They told you, they brought up all these things that he was promised. They brought you all these things. But who's the first one to mention breaking down the door? David. Who's the first one to say, I want my wife to keep my pension? David.
She's right.
Who
he
was the
did.
first one to say, I want a family picture, please give me my family picture. Here is the passcode to my phone.
David.
David.
She's right.
Who asked to be put in isolation because it's better for everybody involved? David. None of these things came from the investigators. He asked for these things. And they said that they would have done these things or offered or tried for anybody sitting across the table from them. This is not exclusive to Ortiz. This was not a one-time thing. And you know what? How else we know that he gave this voluntarily and freely? He knew his rights. He was read his rights. You all saw that in the video. And let's look at his background. Let's talk about his background for just a second. He's an educated man.
He has
a bachelor's and a master's in criminal justice. He's a border patrol supervisor. He worked at the Border Intelligence Center. And you guys saw it in the videos. Maybe not when he was talking to, both when he was talking to Captain Calderon and to Ranger Salinas. He told them, I was involved in all these operations. And let's talk about those.
I like her.
Unit Stone Guard. The different crack houses that he took down. The targeted enforcement unit. He talked about arrests he'd made. He talked about chases he'd done. He talked about it all. He has been Captain Calderon. He has been Ranger Salinas. He has sat across from somebody else to do an interview or interrogation. He knows what he had to do. He could have stopped talking. He could have asked for a lawyer, and he never did. Now let's talk about the truck. They want you to believe that this was an illegal search. They don't believe it. Now let's talk about this. What did everybody tell you happened when they saw him at the Stripes? He turned and ran.
Let me look up what Stripes
He
is.
acknowledged that it's his truck, but he turns and ran in the opposite direction. And even then, no search was done at the Stripes.
Because I know a couple
They want to
of
tell you that they
different
manipulated the
Stripes
truck. They opened
that
the
are
door.
south-
They opened the
in
door.
South
They took some
Texas.
photos, preservation pictures to make sure that they knew that it was all there, what it looked like at the time. And they did not do an inventory there. They want to harp on the fact that it says inventory search, but then it says no inventories conducted. What does that matter? It says no inventory search was conducted. And they had probable cause. At that point, they had probable cause. What did Ranger Salinas tell you? I wanted to get it in a secure environment. He could have searched that truck at the Stripes. He could have.
It's like a
He
7-Eleven.
flashed his light into that car, into that truck that matched the description that Erica gave, that belonged to the individual that Erica identified. And what did they see? What did he see? The pink purse, the tall boys, and a holster.
Yeah, it
He
wasn't
could
this,
have
David.
gotten into that truck at that point.
Coolest.
And yet he didn't. Why? Because he wanted to preserve the evidence. Look at the evidence retrieval form. It's all there. They did their best to bring you all the evidence. They did their best to keep the integrity of the evidence for you all to decide. And now, defense is going to come up here, whether it's Mr. Perez or Mr. Fuchs. And they're going to come up here, and I suspect that they're going to tell you the same thing, that the statement was coerced, that the search was illegal, that there's just not enough evidence. But I want you, as you listen to them, to stay focused. Use your common sense.
It goes
rely
like
on your
this,
life
the first, the
experiences.
fifth.
And if
the
you remember
minor
nothing else
fall,
from
the
what I
major
told you, I want you to
lift.
remember
Isn't
this.
that, is that how it
When
goes?
they come up here,
It's been a minute since I've
it's
heard
not
that
about
song.
what they tell you. It's about what we showed you from that witness stand.
Yeah.
Your Honor, I will reserve
Hey,
the rest of my
Corky!
time for Mr. Ramirez.
I love wrapping presents. It's my favorite. I think this year I might make some Christmas cookies. It's been a long time since I've made Christmas cookies. I think I might make some Christmas cookies this year.
The first thing I want to do is thank you for taking the time out of your own private lives and coming down here and listening to this case, because this is how justice is done in each and every case. And I hope that each of you appreciate the fact that anyone accused by the state of Texas is entitled to a trial by jury of his peers. And we have all noticed that y'all have been very attentive during this trial, and we certainly appreciate it. The prosecutor just told you that she knew we were going to come up here and argue that the search was illegal and the evidence shouldn't be admitted. Well, she's quite right, because she is right. The search is illegal, was illegal, and that evidence should not have been admitted for your consideration. In this charge, which even the judge has even suggested that the first thing you should do when you go back there after you elect one of your members as the presiding juror is to go back over this. And it's very important you do, because the first part of it is definitions of different various things in the law. And sometimes people suggest that lawyers went to law school simply to learn a foreign language called the law. So if you have a question about, okay, look, I've read this and I still don't understand what it means, you're certainly entitled to send a note out to the judge, and it's in here how you do it, saying, look, we need this clarified. And please do. I mean, don't make a decision without having full knowledge of what your job is. And your job is, you're judges. Okay, that's exactly what jurors are. You judge the facts. The judge is the judge of the law, and here it is. This is all the law you will need or can use in the case. You can't use anymore. It's got to be
She's
here.
really not
But you
wrong.
must
There will be
follow
that
this
text.
law.
I can guarantee
Sometimes
it.
people will say, I'm sure you've all heard the phrase, well, that guy got off on a technicality. I'm sure everybody's heard that. Well, there are no technicalities. It is either the law or it is not. And as minor as it may seem, as someone may say, I can't let someone go free on that technicality, then what they're saying is, I would ignore my oath as a juror to follow the law that I have sworn to uphold. And it is that serious. If one of us is denied a right, we are all denied our rights.
It's
And
not wrong.
in this particular case, when the police deny Juan David Ortiz his rights, they're denying us all. That's just how it works and how it felt. But when the government agents violate rights, we all lose. And in this case, they did. They started by, when they searched the truck, and they're saying it was abandoned. And one thing we kept coming up in this trial was, okay, where are the keys to that truck? At one point, Captain Calderon finally said, well, I got them from somebody. But I'll tell you one thing. You can look in that box. You can look in this one, this one.
Okay, I got to say this right now. He's right about the car keys, and it got very heated and contentious during this portion of testimony because of the search of his vehicle.
You can look at all that. You can look under the chairs, wherever. We still don't find them. We still don't see them. And I think that is something critically important to this idea of abandonment, that if I were to leave my keys behind, maybe I don't mean to come back to get it. But if they're in my pocket, that might mean I'm coming back. It's just like when there's a vehicle on the side of the road where DPS has put that orange sticker on the window That doesn't mean that person's abandoned that car. It means they ran out of gas. They got a flat tire. Now, if it stays there a month, that's pretty obvious. But in this case, and then Ranger Salinas, in my opinion, has the audacity to claim when he's asked about those keys and the gun, that since he never saw this gun, this Texas Ranger, who has been enforcing the laws of this state for the past 29 years, who is the elite, the Texas Rangers, he's taking a photograph, looking through a lens, and claims he can't see what he's photographing. And then he says, well, since I didn't find the gun, but I found the holster, I sent troopers out looking for that gun to see if he had ditched it when he ran. I didn't hear any witness come in and say, I'm that guy that Ranger Salinas sent out to look for that gun, and I didn't find it. I didn't hear that testimony. And sometimes it'll tell you also in this charge that you can make reasonable deductions from the evidence. And certain times you can make a reasonable deduction from the evidence that that witness was lying, that witness was making things up, as they did throughout. This argument about he was promised nothing. There was no inducement. The first notice they had that Mr. Ortiz wanted to enforce his right to remain silent and perhaps to a lawyer and perhaps to terminate it was when he refused to sign the form. That's the first indicator this guy doesn't want to cooperate. Because if you're cooperating, they got the little check marks in evidence. I don't know what number, but you can check the boxes. Yep, here, I'll put my initials. But he said, I'm not signing it. I'm not signing anything. In other words, I'm not cooperating. I'm not talking. Then when he was asked about, well, do you want to talk to us? No.
Coolest. Shmita lives in Penguin Land like you do. I'm making the cookies in the Floridas.
No,
and she knows that I'm going to send her a text talking about it's too damn hot. It's hotter than nine kinds of hell. Why am I making cookies?
It wasn't persuasion. It was accommodation. Well, if it's not persuasion, if it's not an inducement, when you say the district attorney himself's out in the hallway, he's in the other room. Do you want us to go put in a good word for you? We'll do that if you talk. Well, if that's not trying to get him to say things he otherwise would, we can go work this case out right now.
Okay, I'm going to have to stop him there because let me say this. I've learned a lot. Under any other circumstances, right? A different defendant, I would 100% agree with him. I will say that there were some what could be perceived as questionable, right? But David Ortiz is a border patrol officer. He is law enforcement. If anybody knows the tactics that law enforcement uses, that they're allowed to use, et cetera, it would be him. So I don't buy that they used coercion or inducement in order to get a confession out of Mr. Ortiz, okay? They didn't even give him the dadgum Whataburger until after he had confessed, which nothing would make me ever talk to the cops if I were a suspect, but I'm not going to lie. I might think for like 3, thank you, coolest reviews. I might, we should both go, Shmita. Cookie make a party at coolest reviews. But I might hesitate for like 3 seconds if Whataburger was on the table because I haven't had it since I left home. So, like Texas, and I miss it.
And that's before any statements were made to them. He also tried to enforce the idea that Captain Calderon said,
I'm going to make Christmas cookies, I think, this year. I haven't done it in a long time, and I want to.
Everybody fed him and did all that, and that was before you saw the video. Yeah, they fed him a bag of chips and 2 bottles of water over a 10-hour period. And then, once they finally get this statement from him, shake his hand, then they go give him the treat. That's when he gets the Whataburger. That's when he gets to eat. But it wasn't until the statement had been made that they then gave him something to eat. It wasn't like Captain Calderon was saying, no, we were feeding him. And he tells him how tired he is and all that. So, well, good. We'll just leave you here for a couple of hours in the most uncomfortable position. And this charge also has the terminology about extended periods of interrogation. That if you find they violated his rights by wearing him down, by just doing it over an extended period of time, then that is also a reason to find that statement is involuntary and should not be considered as evidence. The truck parked out there, taking photographs, and they say they had probable cause to search it. If they had probable cause to search it, they had probable cause to get a search warrant. The law says that a person is entitled to the protection of having a detached magistrate, some judicial person, make the decision, is there probable cause to do this search?
I haven't done that in a long time.
The law is not set up for the police to decide, well, we got probable cause, so we're searching it. That's only in very rare cases where there are exigent circumstances where there would be a danger to the community if they did not conduct the search at that time. This case, the truck was towed to the sheriff's department and parked, as he said, a carport. And then they're saying, well, we didn't do a search warrant because of the time of day. None of that property was going anywhere.
I mean, he's not wrong about this.
Citizen accused of his rights by failing to obtain a search warrant.
They should have gotten a search warrant.
These are not technicalities. These are the law. Okay, thank you.
Uh-oh.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I also want to thank you for your attention to this case and for your service. At times I would look over here to you all and you were all paying.
You're going to be on the naughty list forever, coolest reviews.
I may repeat some of the things that Mr. Fuchs said.
I'll be right back, okay, you guys? But I'll be in chat, so behave. Also, the enforcer, Shamita's here.
We are a nation of laws. The rule of law governs. The law matters. And when we're out in the street walking around, usually it doesn't really hit us like that. But in a courtroom where a lot is at stake, when a lot of things have happened, this is where the Constitution comes to life. And this is where you give it effect. Not in too many instances do I see that the Constitution is given effect, but for sure in a court of law. Now is the time for you to apply the law to the facts. And Mr. Fuchs mentioned the jury charge. This is the law. And sometimes in here it tells you it's not like, well, I don't like this law, so I'm not going to follow it. As Mr. Fuchs said, you took an oath to follow the law. And I would venture to say that there's not too many times in our lives where we raise our hands and swear the truth and to do the truth and to do the right thing and to follow the law, right? So it must be a very unique situation and a dire and great obligation upon yourselves to follow your oath. Your oath now is to follow the law because you are the judges of the facts. So now it is time to apply the law to the facts. Now, the law applies to all of us, good or bad. It also applies to police officers. It applies to the government, to the state, and maybe even to them to a higher standard because we give them a lot of power. I couldn't come to your house and say, hey, move out of the way. I'm going to search your house. I couldn't come to any of you and say, put your hands behind your back. I'm going to handcuff you. We have a power, and we have to have checks and balances on them because otherwise it gets out of hand. And there's other countries that are police states. Mr. Fuchs mentioned, these are principles that our founding fathers thought about. Bad things happening back when they were drafting the Constitution. But they didn't say, oh, the Fourth Amendment, your right to privacy, your Fifth Amendment, your right to remain silent, your Sixth Amendment, your right to counsel. That applies to good people. That only applies to people that commit small crimes. No, it applies to everybody. Because the day we say, oh, the Fourth Amendment and the right to remain silent, that's a drug dealer. No, I mean, he deserves it. Or that's a burglar of a house, a rapist, whatever. Before you know it, we all lose it. So we need to be facts of a case and say, oh, this applies to this guy. Because next it's going to be someone else, and it's the slippery slope. Now, I will say this because I want to make sure that you understand at least where we're coming from. very mindful of the facts, the allegations in this case, the people that got hurt, the people that are deceased. We are very mindful of that. However, even then, the law must be applied fairly. And you have a duty to yourselves because you raised your hand and swore to follow the law, to this judge because he is ordering you to follow the law, and to your country, regardless of all of us being mindful of the facts of this case. Now, let's start with the burden of proof. The state has the burden of proof. Anything you say, well, did they prove that? You look to them. You don't look to us. They have the full burden of proof, and it's beyond the reasonable doubt. And just to give you an idea of how high it is beyond the reasonable doubt, there's a standard that they use over as the civil courthouse. It's called preponderance. And preponderance is when it's a lawsuit and people are arguing about money. And so we allowed the side that proves it by 51% to win. That's it. Then we have clear and convincing. That's where the state wants to come and take your case because they're saying you are not taking care of them or whatever. That's clear and convincing. It's higher than preponderance, which is at 51%. To take your kids, all they need is clear and convincing, and they could take your kids. Beyond the reasonable doubt is higher than that. Why? Because beyond the reasonable doubt, when you convict someone, you're taking their liberty and their freedom. And that's why we've gone to wars. Americans have died for freedom and liberty. So that's why we make it a very high standard, the highest standard in the law. Now, if we start looking at the facts, as Mr. Fuchs said, we'll start, for example, when the charge tells you, Mr. Ortiz chose to remain silent. And the judge in the charge tells you, look, you cannot consider that for any reason. You know, you can't discuss it. You can't say, oh, well, he didn't say his side or anything, because remember, we don't have any burden, right? So you can't discuss it. It's irrelevant. Why? Because it's not evidence. It didn't come in. What you do decide this case on is evidence. It came into that you heard or any exhibits. And so anyone that didn't testify, well, they didn't testify. It's not evidence. If we talk about the idea of the violations of the law, the first one, if you recall, were when Mr. Ortiz was getting arrested. And this was prevented. He was kept from reading Ortiz his rights. And he said, he said, maybe Captain Calderon or whatever. And, you know, when people get arrested, they have the right to have their rights read to them. And yet a law enforcement officer, and he's military, he knows the Constitution, and he immediately attempted to read or was prevented from doing that by one of these supervisors. I think he said Calderon. And why? Well, there's the chance that he's silent, or I don't want to say anything, or whatever. Or two, because they want to have the citizen in a controlled environment. Okay? Or they put you in a room, they isolate you, and then it bore fruit here. If we go to the issue of the voluntariness of the statement, what's the first thing? First of all, the state has the burden to prove to you beyond a reasonable doubt that the statement was given voluntarily. And so if any of you have a reasonable doubt, you go, man, I'm not too sure. It's like, you look to them, explain why this. You have the right to do that as citizens, to protect citizens, because you see, the state has a lot of power. The government has a lot of power. Police have a lot of power. And so that's why we have, and our founders thought of that, our forefathers. They said, no, the government wants to take our rights away, your liberty, your freedom. You better be darn sure that's going to be by a lot of evidence, okay? And so you look to them to say, what about this? What about that? And the law says, look, if a statement is coerced or improper persuasion was used, influence, persistence, long periods of time, duress, promises, and the idea, and it says there, if they say anything along the lines, oh, this can be used for you, what did they tell them about DA Alanis being there? And the testimony about Alanis, that he's there on a high profile. And at the time, district attorney, the elected district attorney of Webb County, happens to just be there. And the two chief investigators, one with 29 years experience, Ranger E.J. Salinas, and Captain Calderon, who has about 20 or 25. Oh, they say, well, he strolled by, I saw him. It's almost incredulous. Because also, they testified that when they put him in that room, they kept him. If you remember, he went in at 2:30, and I think they went in at 3:21 or something like that. So that's part of technique. Both Calderon and Ranger Salinas said, look, nothing that happens in an interrogation room is by accident. There's just too much experience on their part. There's too much technique, too much training. They know what they're doing. It's by design. And of course, when you say, oh, well, yeah, but you were icing him or you were making him sweat. Oh, no, I was busy doing other things. They're trained in how to answer. They go to school on testifying, how to testify. Not lay witnesses, but cops do. And so, it could be, well, I was doing something else. Maybe he was watching the monitor, watching the guy sweat. That could be one of them. And so if we keep on going on that, this combined experience, when Salinas walks in and he says, starts talking, he says, are you willing to give us your side or your statement? Ortiz responds, no. Now, I don't know how it comes that they say, a police officer say, oh, I didn't take it like he was trying to say he wanted to remain silent. What did the young lady just say? Use your common sense. I go up to someone, hey, you want to dance? No. Well, let me talk to you about the technique I have in dancing. No means no. Hey, can I borrow some money from you? No. That's it. Can I take your car? No. No, it's no. Except here. Except here, it's not no.
Okay. So what had happened was this. It's not a lie. Okay. Yeah, there was a verdict. Let's go. But everybody came, like I went live earlier today to get the this morning because they were supposed to do the closing arguments, and everybody hung out waiting with me. And Sam had to come and bail me out because I was distracted and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so there's been a verdict, but we didn't get to watch these closing arguments. So we're going to watch these real quick and then we'll get to the verdict. I promise. Just hang in there. Now to Heather. Okay. He's not like lying. That did happen, but he also was read his rights. His argument is that he wasn't read his rights immediately, but he was read his rights, and he did. And it's on it's in the interrogation discs, and he was read his rights, and he refused to sign that he was read his rights. So, and that's all on that's all on video. I'm not gonna tell yet. Let's go. Nobody knows yet. I mean, I know because I watched it, but everybody was waiting to watch the closing arguments together.
Because the cops say, oh, I didn't interpret it that way. If you follow that reasoning.
Oh, you're welcome, coolest. I thought it was great.
Remember, we're supposed to be looking at the accused. And did he invoke his right? Yes, he did. No. When asked directly, are you willing to give a statement? No. And then the cops turn it around. Well, I didn't take it like that. Their state of mind. Follow that logic. What about the next guy? I want to take the fifth. Well, I didn't take it like that because he didn't say the Fifth Amendment. Go further. Another guy says, I want the Fifth Amendment. Well, I didn't take it like that because he didn't say he invoked the Fifth Amendment. So if you follow that logic, they can interpret it any way you want.
They do interpret it any way you want. The proper way to say
I don't want to talk
is,
to you. Let's say he said, I don't want to talk to you. Oh, well, he was being impulsive. We wanted him to think about it.
No. See, here's the deal. You can say that you don't want to talk. They can continue to talk to you. What you have to say is, I'd like to speak to a lawyer. That's what stops them from speaking to you. You have to say those words. It's sort of like in the United States, when you get like the spam calls or this call, telemarketers, you have to say something very specific. And if you don't get it in just the right order, they don't have to do it. So yeah, they have to say, you have to tell, I have no idea what's in that tire. I've been trying to figure it out this whole time, Coolest Reviews. Like you have to say, I want you to remove my name and my phone number from your list, right? If you don't say it just like that, or even, I don't even remember if that's what it is, because I don't even have a landline and I just decline spam calls, but you know what I'm saying? So saying you don't want to talk does not stop the police from talking to you. Only saying, I would like to speak to a lawyer, or I want a lawyer. Hell, Chandler Halderson just said the word lawyer and they stopped. So there you go.
Their interpretation should not be the measure. It should be, what did the citizen say? If he's asked, does he want to talk? And he says no, that's it. There's no magic word that is required under the law that says you have to say, I invoke the Fifth Amendment of the United States Constitution. Use your common sense. And I submit to you that minute, that should be enough for you to say, the guy invoked his Fifth Amendment right to remain silent. He was asked directly. He answered directly. This judge is telling me if he invoked his rights, I cannot consider that statement. I have to wholly disregard it. And it's not evidence in this trial. If you use your common sense like you would anywhere else, at the store, at the cafe, anywhere, but in this court of law, because Ranger Salinas and Trooper Calderon say, oh, we didn't take it like that. We still have to read him his rights. No, there's no such thing. There's no law that says I still have to read him his rights. That was it. But if that's not enough for you, let's keep going.
He never asked for an attorney, though, and you know this.
During the questioning that, because they had the information from Erica, that they'd been out drinking and then she was doing the drugs and all that. And when they have the truck, they see the three tall boys, remember? Then they see in the video that he bought another three tall boys. So he had been drinking tallies before, as they call them, and tallies now. And they also, and no one disputed this. Everybody knows he was taking all these pills from the VA. No one disputed that. So this guy is medicated. He's been drinking heavily. And they know his emotional condition and mental health condition is not the best. But they don't stop. They keep on going. Okay? Now, if you look at then the technique that they're using, now, because he is not cooperating, which could be interpreted by any one of you as saying he wants to terminate the interview, okay? You can interpret it like that. Nothing stops you from that. They start confronting him with evidence. They start saying, hey, Erica said this. They start confronting him with items from the truck. Remember, they brought in the purses and the syringes. They confront him with the rounds and the pistol. Hey, how come you don't have? So they're trying to give him incriminating evidence, okay? Knowing that he's been drinking, he's not in his best state of mind. They confront him with the victim's photos, and then they again ice him. They leave him to sweat there, and leave him over a long period of time, like the charge tells you that could be a violation. Finally, they enter at 10:55. Okay, now it's been maybe 7 hours, 8, something like that, and they've given him water and chips. Now, this is where we're talking about, and the charge will tell you, it's the judge's charge. He's telling you, look, if there's improper inducement, then it's not a voluntary statement. Now, what do? First is hey, we want to put in a good word with you for the DA. If you cooperate, there were a lot of ifs in there. Help us, and we'll help you. We will get the picture. We won't. Everything's in the future, you see? Everything's in the future. It's conditional. Cooperate, talk to us. Everything's conditional. It hasn't happened yet. And like I told one of the Rangers, why don't you just say no? Say no. We're going to do what we need to do to get into the house. No, we don't give a damn about your picture. And the retirement is very important, the retirement. Oh, I think it was Calderon, was falling out of his chair trying to convince him, please, we can do it. She shouldn't be left without retirement.
You know, Nonstop Mom, you're 100% correct. Look, I'm not going to, without the confession, okay, they do have other evidence to tie him to these crimes, even without the confession, okay? One of the victims described him because she survived very shortly, but she did describe him. So they did have other evidence, okay? So even if the jury rejected the and I will say this, when they were deliberating at the very end, probably, I don't know, an hour and a half before they reached their verdict, they did ask for the confession, to see the confession video. So I will say that when I watched the interrogation videos, and it's long and they're very hard to understand, and you guys were there, you know, when I watched them, I did see some problematic things. I did see some things that would be issues in court. No, babe, that's not what I meant. Like, just in this case, but generally speaking, I don't like it either. People's rights should be protected. And to me, one of the issues that made this confession problematic is exactly what his defense attorney has brought up. He had been drinking. He was taking 8 different medications. And I would imagine that of those 8, probably 5 of them at least, or I'll even go half. 4 of them probably have a clear warning on them not to mix with alcohol. So I think that I do think they wanted to get him talking, and I do think they were anxious to resolve this case. I will say that. And I think that they engaged in some poor judgment for sure. He could have asked for an attorney, or they could have just backed off because they knew he was not. I mean, he was medicated and he had been drinking, and nobody is disputing that. You know what I mean? So he's raising some good points, accurate
I'm
points
gonna work
too.
on it.
Quite
I'm telling you, she
frankly,
deserves it. Please, please, please.
I
But
don't
it's
like when
conditional.
people's
Here is
disregard
this.
rights are
When he talks about
disregarded either.
isolation, being placed in isolation, that also, I don't know which of the, I don't recall right now, but it was Ranger Salinas said, yeah, but you want an isolation, but you're not what? You're not talking to us. Now, whether they wanted him to tell the truth or not, it's not the question. They wanted him to talk. Okay. And the fact of who brought it up is irrelevant. What does it matter who brought it up? You see? What does it matter? It doesn't matter who brought it up. It's still an inducement. Once they know they can induce him to do something, if he gets that, what if they say, well, we'll get you your toolbox? Well, maybe that's not important to him, but the picture was important. Once they learned the picture was important, they started utilizing it as inducement. Okay. Now,
I mean, he's not wrong in the example that he's given, but I will say that
at some point,
this is the part I
after all
disagree
this
with. I don't
improper
think there was inducement.
After all this time has passed, no true food, just water, understanding and knowing that he's got this emotional, mental health issues, the drinking, whatever the case might be going, he finally does start making incriminating statements. Okay. So we submit to you that if you look at the totality, now, I saw his qualifications that they put up there. Yeah, that's his normal self. Military, masters, all that. But you got to look at the guy that's in front of you. You know, you have to look at the guy that's in front of you, that was there at that time. Broken, PTSD, migraine headaches, insomnia, nightmares. That's the guy that was in front of them. And they induced him. They confronted him with all this stuff. They promised him things, the DA, all that. It was improper inducement. If you read the charge, it's very clear. If you coerce the individual, if you place him under duress, at some point it passes that threshold, and it did here, ladies and gentlemen. It passed the threshold where he involuntarily gave that statement. And the court instructs you that because he was improperly induced, because he was given these promises, it says you must wholly disregard that entire statement. You literally have to take it out of your head like it didn't happen. You know, and for any one of us that go, well, come on, a picture, because the DA asked him at the very beginning, did you promise him probation? Did you promise him that you would dismiss the charges? Look, he's been there X amount of hours. He's all distraught. He's tied down. It's like you have a dog tied down that hasn't been eating or whatever. You know, you want him to roll over. You don't need to give him a ribeye. You just give him a Scooby snack. That's enough, and he'll roll over. You don't need a lot of promises when you have someone in that condition, because he's talking about totally different things. And so I submit to you that the statement was not voluntary. They overcame his free will. And under your oath, this is not a popularity contest. It's not because you like it. It's not because you don't. It's not your fault that the police used those tactics, excessive tactics. It's not your fault. Under your oath, you have to disregard that statement.
He did, Tony.
Involuntary.
Not
to mention,
there was some
very beginning,
hold on,
willing to give us a statement. No.
You know, the thing is I actually like this attorney, okay, because he is snarky and low key. I feel like there are things that he has said during this closing argument. There are things that he said during the questioning, except for when he questioned Erica Pena. Now, I didn't like that. I didn't like the way he did it. I think that there was he could have asked her. I think he could have attempted to impeach her testimony without handling it that way. But you guys have met me. I mean, what is a roast if not a closing argument, a mini closing argument, right? And I feel like, I mean,
that should be, in my opinion, enough for any of you to say, this guy invoked his Fifth Amendment right off the bat. And this judge is telling me I must disregard it.
But
now,
Even if they throw out the
regarding
confession.
illegally obtained
Oh,
statements.
here we
The
go.
charge
They need
talks
to have
about
both
that there's
thrown
a lot
out.
of laws, that talk about privacy. It's the Fourth Amendment. First of all, your right to privacy, your right to be free of search and seizure in your home, in your person, in your possessions. We have Article 1 of the Texas Constitution says the same thing. There's another section in the Code of Criminal Procedure says 3823 says any illegally obtained evidence, you cannot use it against an individual.
Hey, you guys from other
Now,
states, do you
let's look
have a
at the-
constitution too?
what happened in this case.
Like I know we have the federal, but do
rights,
states,
again, that I'm speaking
other
of
states
are
have
all of ours,
constitutions
okay?
too?
And rights are not like privileges. For example, your driver's license,
That's a privilege.
The state, you don't really have a right to drive on the highways and the streets and the beaches of the state of Texas. The state of Texas says, oh, okay, you met this qualifications, we're going to give you this driver's license. But rights are yours. They're inherently yours. No one can take them away, okay? And so, again, you have the Fourth Amendment and the United States Constitution, the Fifth Amendment. Now, what does it talk about? Seizure of property and search of property. And it does talk about, again, like I
Ohio
said,
does? Okay.
in your person.
Because when I
clock
was
is like,
growing
hey,
up,
get against the wall, I'm going to pat you down. Let me
yeah,
search
yeah,
into
yeah,
your
yeah,
pockets.
yeah. When I was growing up in Texas, one of the things you have to take in 8th grade is Texas history. And we learned about the Texas Constitution, obviously, when you would learn about the Texas Constitution in Texas history. I just never thought about other states not having one.
Your home, hey, open the door. Let me walk in. I want to look what's inside. And any other possession, I don't know if it's a go-kart or a car, your motorcycle. You have a privacy interest in there. Now, when the trooper, Begon, I think, asked him, is this your truck? He said, yes. I'm going to give you an example because they're talking about abandonment. This is more what abandonment is under the law. A guy with a bag at the airport puts it down, and it's got 100.
This is not an evidence. Giving hypotheticals, giving examples, not permitted.
In reference to the law, even as Mr. Perez said, the law is included in the instructions
Yes.
and good charges agency,
Yes.
and anything that's not consistent with that shall be disregarded.
Yeah, just because they call it abandonment here, I can tell you any other thing about what I think abandonment is. Abandonment is when you put down a bag, it has $100,000 in cash, and the DEA shows up. Hey, we know there's money in that and cash, 100,000 in cash in that bag. Is that your bag? Oh no. Even if he did have it, okay, he put it down. And is that your bag? No, that's not my bag. That's abandonment. He said,
So
that's my truck.
I think Texas likes to indoctrinate us early
interest in
too, but
protecting
I
his
think they
privacy
want
to
us
the
to
truck.
be indoctrinated
Having said that,
and able to
what does Ranger
comprehend
Salinas
what we're
do?
being indoctrinated.
He immediately calls Santuro.
No,
and
I
says,
love
"Secure the
Texas.
truck."
I miss it.
That means
I
it's
miss it, but I
seized.
can't do another Texas
Okay, if a
winter.
cop,
I
if
just
you're
can't
walking down
do
the
it.
sidewalk and the cop says stop,
Oh, I didn't mean to push
you are
that.
seized.
Sorry.
He doesn't have to come and grab you. For Fourth Amendment purposes, under the law, you are seized the minute you're commanded to stay somewhere.
Oh, good. California
No,
does.
nothing
That's
has
good.
to- you don't have to be
Okay.
manipulated
I
or
feel
anything.
like
The
states
minute
should have a
you're told to stay
constitution.
or not move, you're seized. The minute he told
Texas and
Santuro,
Florida
"Secure
don't have
that
state
truck,"
taxes either.
that truck was seized. It was under law enforcement possession at that moment in time. Okay. Now, let's talk about exigent circumstances because it's important. Okay. Exigent, what does it mean? Immediate, urgent, pressing, pressing circumstances, immediate circumstances. Now, why is that relevant to vehicles? Because vehicles can drive away. So if the cops are looking for some evidence in the car and they go, hey man, we need a search warrant for this car. And the guy comes over like, hey, I'm going to go to McDonald's, and he starts driving away. That's exigent circumstances. No. We need to search it because there's exigent circumstances. You could drive away. That's one way to search a vehicle when it's not possessed. But once it's secure, the exigent circumstances go away. And that car, for all practical purposes, is like your home. Your home can't drive away. That car, now that it's secure, it can't drive away. And I told Ranger Salinas, could a guy go in and say, hey, let me get into this truck and start driving away? Once Santuro was told to secure it, he said, no. We know the vehicle is seized for Fourth Amendment purposes that all of us have, okay? Now, then comes Ranger Salinas. He says he arrives at 1:30. By 1:34, he says, I'm taking pictures. Now, there's two ways on a vehicle like that where you're going to look at stuff. Well, there's the third one, but it's not really that what we're talking about. The plain view, okay? I brought up plain view. Plain view is your car is stopped at an HEB, right? I could walk by your car and say, oh, what's inside this car? Oh, man, she's got a couple of Snickers bars and, oh, look at that popcorn. That looks really good. I could see inside your car and look at whatever. I can't touch it. I can't manipulate it. I can't open your door, but I can look. That's plain view. That's okay. What does Ranger Salinas do? And it's on that video. He's shown his slide in there and he saw the holster, okay? Then he goes and we have the pictures, starts opening doors and taking pictures and looking. A search isn't like, well, I have to grab it. No, a search is observing. You know, it's like if I go to your house and I open your intimate clothing drawer and I open it, but I don't touch. Am I searching by looking? Yes, I'm searching. I don't need to be grabbing stuff. There's a search. The minute they open the doors, that truck is being searched. And he did it because he saw the holster. And he told you, officer safety. So he has to call and tell him about the holster. But he wants to know, is the gun in the truck? And it's incredulous. It's really beyond believability that this guy, Ranger Salinas, 29 years, that he would come and testify to you that he saw it yesterday or this week in a video, finally saw the gun. That's the first thing he was looking for, the gun. Now, why wouldn't he come clean about that? Because, Judge, can you give me like a 10-minute warning? Because he's stuck. Santuro said no inventory search was done. There's only two things you can do, inventory or search. This deal about preservation photos, what the heck is that? There's no such thing in the law about, oh, we did a preservation search. There's no such thing as a preservation search. It doesn't exist. It's either inventory or search. And when they said no inventory, they're stuck with the search. And you know, she asked them at some point, oh, but you only saw things in plain view? Bull. I had to come back and say, wait a minute, was that gun in plain view? The things in the fender and the doorwell, are they in plain view? And all of us have cars. You know, you put stuff down here on the doors. That's not in plain view because it's between the seat and the door when it's closed. Now he's observing things that were not in plain view. Therefore, what? It's a search. At some point he said, I asked him, did you manipulate the vehicle? No, I did not manipulate the vehicle. And the DA, and you only seeing things in plain, it was a dogfight. It was pulling teeth. Now, if they're saying they have a right to
just
search
get
it
to the
there,
verdict.
then what's the big deal? Why fight so hard? If they're saying, oh, we had probable cause to search, we could have searched it there if we wanted to. You can't have it both ways. You can't fight a tooth and nail that, we could have searched it, like they're going to claim we could have searched it out there. It was abandoned and all that stuff. Then why fight so hard? Because they know it was a search. It was warrantless. It was illegal.
Okay.
And once you have an illegal search, that's it. All that you cannot consider,
You're right.
including the gun. And so they're stuck with this search that was illegal because now nothing can be considered thereafter. Because we know it wasn't an inventory search because Santuro signed, there was no inventory. And Ranger Salinas, because of that form, was stuck. He had to.
Okay, we're all watching the verdict. Because after the verdict is then I'll let you know what's next. For this case and this channel.
Can you please hand the verdict form to the bailiff?
Oh.
Can the defendant please
I hope, Heather. I hope.
in front?
Now, see, I have to say this before we start.
Verdict form.
Okay, maybe it's just me, and maybe I have a little bias, but I have to say I like the way that Texas does things. I like the way that Texas, when you when you plead, you have to 4 nonstop, mom, 4. And then the attempted kidnapping and I think aggravated assault on Erica Pena. So she would have been the third. If he had succeeded, if she had not gotten away, she would have been the third victim, right? But when he was on the run for like 2 days, I think it was, he unalived two more women on the same day. So yeah, But I like the way Texas does it. I like the way that Texas makes you stand up and stand in front of the judge to get your verdict.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Juan David Ortiz, guilty of the offense of capital murder as charged in the indictment and as instructed in this charge. Signed by the presiding jury. This is your verdict, correct? Thank you. Mr. Ortiz, you heard the jury's verdict. You have the right to allocution, which means you have the right to make a statement if you wish. Okay, so they're asking for the jury to be polled. So meet the juror list. Well, I'm just going to call you by number from the back. Juror number 1, can you please stand and tell me, was this your verdict? Well, okay, in the front. Juror number 2. Juror number 3.
Yes.
Juror number 4. Juror number 5. Juror number 6. Juror number 7. Juror number 8. Juror number 9. Juror number 10. Juror number 11. And juror number 12. Thank you. You may be seated.
So I think that the jury
So,
was
Mr. Ortiz, as I was
8
saying, you
women,
have the right to
4
make a statement
men,
if you wish. Would you like to make a statement?
based on voices, I think.
Anything else?
Well, you can't speak at all.
And Mr. Alanis, were there going to be victim impact statements made?
Yes, Your Honor, after the court
Okay.
sent the post.
I just wanted to make sure that
Yes, we
Yes.
have representatives of the family that would like to make victim impact statements after Mr. Ortiz's sentence.
correct. So, Mr. Ortiz, at this, as you know, I'm sure your attorneys have informed you, and you've heard throughout the trial, this charge of capital murder has an automatic sentence of life in prison without the possibility for parole. So, at this time, the court is going to assess the punishment of life in prison without the possibility of parole. That is your sentence at this time. Mr. Alanis?
This time, I'd like to ask any family member from representing Melissa to please step forward.
All right, now I'm going to tell you guys this. These victim impact statements, they're victim impact statements. So this is your trigger warning. It's sad. It's heartbreaking. I will, just so you know.
Melissa Ramirez.
I mean, he could, Heather, whatever. And you know what? That confession and the and the
right to appeal
what
this verdict. I'm sure your attorneys have informed
Night
you.
nonstop, Mom.
Would you?
The
Are you
search
at this
of
time
his
asking-
vehicle
Yes. Okay.
would, I'm sure,
wanna have
are
an
going to be
attorney
the
appointed for
main
that
things
purpose?
that he appeals on.
Yes. File the paperwork so I can. I know that at least one of you is not going to be available. So we'll see who the appellate lawyers are that are available on the list. All right. Anything else?
And I only made it through Melissa's family because then it was time for me to come live. So
Not those impact statements. only.
good night, nonstop, Mom. I understand, babe. It's hard. It's hard.
I'm Melissa Ramirez's sister-in-law. Melissa was a loving, kind, and funny person. She always looked out for her kids. Melissa was not alone, so I'm here to speak up for her. I can't believe we took her life with no remorse. Melissa was more like a sister to me. She was the best person I could ever be with. I loved her so much, and I still do. I was always there for her, but sometimes I couldn't be there all the time. You took someone's daughter, sister, mother, and friend's life. How could you? She left her kids behind, and now their hearts are broken, knowing they won't be able to see their mom again because of what you did. Do you know how much pain you have caused to this family? Do you know how many times I wish for Melissa to show up to my home and see her and hug her and hear her voice again? I hate you for what you did, and I can never forgive you, nor do I think God will. You deserve to suffer in prison and go to hell. I still mourn for my sister-in-law. Even though it's been 4 years, I feel as if it happened yesterday. My heart is torn apart knowing that I won't be able to see her, but to visit her in the cemetery. Monsters like you don't even deserve to breathe. nor wake up to every morning. You are a turd, so take back those words you said to these beautiful women. You deserve to die and suffer for what you did, and when that day happens, I will finally be in peace.
Yo soy la mamá de Melissa y quiero empezar a preguntarte a ti,
This is
Mucho.
Melissa's mom.
¿por qué la mataste? ¿Por qué mataste a mi hija? Si ella tenía hijos, tenía hermanos y tenía una madre. Mi hija no estaba sola y dejaste a sus hijos huérfanos. ¿Por qué te ensañaste así con ella si estaba indefensa? Melissa no tenía maldad. Ella era noble, sensible. ¿Qué daño te hizo para que te ensañaras así con ella? ¿Por qué le quitaste la vida? No tenías derecho. Tú no eres nadie para decidir por la vida de otra persona. ¿Qué pensabas cuando jalaste el gatillo a quemarropa por más de 3 veces contra alguien indefenso? ¿Qué sentiste cuando callabas con 3 balas sus gritos de súplica? Yo sé que Melissa no significaba nada para ti, pero para mí era mi vida. Y ahora mi vida está destrozada por tu ausencia. Eres un monstruo que no merece estar respirando el mismo aire que yo. Ojalá que tu vida sea un infierno cuando estés en prisión. Cuando supe que la encontraron sin vida, sentí que me iba a morir de tanto dolor. Fue tan grande mi pena que mi alma no pudo habitar más dentro de mi cuerpo y me desplomé entre sollozos y gritos. Ya pasaron
I
más de
promise
4
you,
años
she
y
said
de mis ojos
nothing
aún
about
salen
super
millones de lágrimas.
teleconferencing.
Melissa era mi hija, mi más grande amor, y ahora por causa tuya ya no la puedo tener conmigo. Tú no te imaginas el daño que causaste a sus hijos. Maldito asesino. No sabes cuánto te aborrezco, eres un monstruo. Tus hijos siempre serán los hijos de un asesino. Y cargarás con ese estigma el resto de sus vidas y les llamarán siempre el hijo del asesino.
Literally nothing.
Asesino, y
Don't
deseo que
watch
cuando
the
te
closed
toque morir,
captioning because it's
que tu
not
muerte
right.
sea dolorosa y larga, que te vayas al infierno ahí donde ahora perteneces. Y ojalá que tengas el valor para quitarte la vida así como se la quitaste a mi hija.
Fucking coward.
Claudine Luera.
I know.
4 years have certainly flown by rather quickly, but have felt like an eternity for our families. Our lives came crashing down as everything started to unfold on September 14, 2018.
No.
You stated you were cleaning up the
Cortez.
streets of Laredo, but as we stand here today,
Like, I can understand a little bit, a lot of it, but it's hard for me to say what they're saying.
by removing
Does that make
individuals like
sense?
yourself from our streets. When becoming a federal officer, Mr. Ortiz, you swore to protect and to serve our country, but sadly you failed to do so. Mr. Isidro Alaniz fulfilled that duty today. The extent of your actions have caused so much pain to so many people, including your own family.
She's right.
Just as we have lost our sister, my nieces and nephews have lost their mother, and my father lost his daughter. Your mother lost her son, your wife lost her husband, and your precious children have lost their father. Your family has mourned their loss along with ours. They will continue to be in my prayers. I will pray for their strength, and I will pray for peace in their hearts. I've carried so much these last few years, Mr. Ortiz. The pain and anger have been the hardest to bear. Today, I am wholeheartedly letting go and letting God handle what my heart cannot. Forgiving is part of healing. Today, Mr. Ortiz, I am choosing to forgive you because I know in my heart that Melissa, Claudine, Griselda, and Janelle are resting peacefully in the heavens above. I will now read a brief statement from my nephew, Claudine's son. What you did to my mother, Claudine, was a horrible thing. I forgive you, but only because forgiveness is not for you, it's for me. She would not have wanted me to feel that burden of what you did on me. You ruined so many dreams that my siblings and I have, but instead of despairing, we will create new dreams and paths because my mother would have wanted us to. You will be long forgotten in our memories and locked up until you die. But my siblings and I will move forward in the future, knowing that our mother, Claudine, will always be by our side.
I am the youngest daughter of Claudine Luera. You took my mom away from me. You ruined any chance I could have to have her in my life. The pain of having to lose my mom when I was only 17 years old. I was still a kid in my junior year of high school, September 13, 2018, when I experienced the worst day of my life. I was picked up from my high school and I was driven to my mother's sister's house, and all my family gathered together to break the news to me and my brother. We were told that my mother was killed. My heart broke into pieces at that very moment, and being told that you killed my mom, that was heartbreaking. I was at a loss of words. I was in shock, but all I could do was cry and be angry because I knew I was never going to see my mom again. I was never going to hear her laugh. I was never going to be called mama's or her little girl from her again. I was never going to be able to hug her nor be able to hear her voice anymore. I started grieving at my new reality that my mom was taken away from me so suddenly from my life. You, Juan David Ortiz, you didn't kill just women. You killed women who mattered, women who were loved by so many people. Those women were loved beyond measure. You will always be known and remembered in our community and in Laredo, and to the whole world, you will be known as a monster. You said you wanted to clean up the streets of Laredo. Our streets in Laredo will only be clean when people like you are put away in jail forever. You hurt my family, you hurt the other women's families, and you broke your own family. My mom had 5 beautiful children. You didn't just take her away from me. You also took her away from my brothers and my sister. I have so much pain in my heart, but having to witness how you killing my mom affected my brothers and sisters broke me. Having to hear them cry because of losing our mom was one of the most heartbreaking experiences in my life, and I couldn't do anything to console them. I was just a kid. My siblings and I, we were just kids. I got so depressed, I got put in a dark hole because of my mom's death. My mother was a part of me you destroyed, and I wanted to destroy the rest of me out of despair. You failed in destroying these women because their memories, their legacy, they themselves will live on in their children and the people they impacted in their lives. They will always be remembered and never forgotten. They will continue to live forever in our hearts, while you will only be left to be forgotten and no longer a part of society. The one word to describe your life from now is exile. The word to describe the life of these women is they will be cherished and will always be part of our lives and the people touched by them.
Griselda.
My name is Joey Cantu. Chelly, Griselda Cantu was many things. And yes, she was a drug addict. She was a prostitute and she was a felon. But she wouldn't know these things. And maybe one day she would have ceased in being these things, as her family had always hoped. But you have forever robbed us of that hope, that one day she would come back to us. It is said that hope springs eternal, and it's true, until someone like you comes along and completely and utterly destroys that hope. You'll hear no cliches from me about my sister, that she was this or she was that. My sister was a good person, yes, but she did bad things. Bad things not motivated by malice, not motivated by hate, but by addiction, by her disease. She was sick, as were the rest of these girls. I'll tell you what my sister was and what always will be. She will always be the 6-year-old little girl she was all I had, bro. She was all I had left. You took the last living member of my family, man. She will always be the 6-year-old little girl who would wake up in the middle of the night to walk her 8-year-old brother to the restroom because I was scared of the dark. She will always be the little sister who defended me from bullies when we were in elementary school, even fist fighting them. And she'll always be the little sister who cried just because she saw me crying. My sister was empathetic and she was compassionate, as evidenced by your conversation with her. Her knowing what was likely going to happen to her and still choosing to talk you out of suicide, showing you compassion, sympathy. She did not beg for her life. She begged for your life. She told you it didn't matter what you had done, that God would forgive you, that God would always love you. And that was my sister in a nutshell. And in the face of that empathy and compassion that was surely God-given, you responded by violently taking her life. I guess it's true that no good deed goes unpunished. I've now had to live a life in which I've endured and suffered the murder of my mother, the murder of my father, and now the murder of my sister. It would be so easy to hate you. Too easy. But I've always abhorred the path of least resistance, and I don't hate you. I don't hate you at all. And I won't hate you, but I do hate what you did. not only to her, but to all of us. And here's the irony. Roughly 26 and a half years ago, I stood where you now stand, accused and convicted of murder, sentenced to 40 years in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. I spent 22 years and 11 months of my life in prison from the age of 15 to the age of 38. When I was granted parole, the sister of my victim wrote me and told me that she forgave me for what I had done and that I should forgive myself as well. And now I find myself here in front of the person who killed my little sister. And I want you to know that I forgive you and I hold no ill will towards you, man. I pray that one day you find the peace that you have ripped away from all of us. You spoke of God's ability for miracles. Well, your miracle is that you get to continue living, to continue to see and hear from your loved ones while we no longer can. When in any other circumstance, you would be facing a death sentence. And know that it was me, the brother of Griselda, who asked the DA to consider going without the death penalty. Because your family has suffered as well. No parent should ever have to watch their child die, even yours. I leave you with the words of my sister. No matter what you've done, it doesn't matter. God will forgive you and God loves you. May you find peace and freedom in Him. But I'll forever wonder if maybe Erica was not who she was, if Erica was not a prostitute and a drug addict, if swifter action could have been taken, would they have believed her should have been an upstanding citizen? Would it have taken 4 hours to find him? 3 hours, 2 hours, however long it took? You're not entirely your fault. We were failed at times by the justice system too.
I'm Monica, my beloved relative of Kelly Cantu. I have heard comments that you mentioned you wanted to clean up the streets. Who are you to consider yourself so worthy to clean up the streets? If the girls were so unworthy to be in the streets, you were right there with them. They knew you by your first name. You were given 2 weeks to present your side of your innocence. You were given a different venue to avoid bias against you. You were given a jury of your peers, thousands of dollars to decide your verdict. You did not give the victims any opportunity that you were given to decide their verdict. I heard you were deprived of a meal. Oh, you're so malnourished. What were the girls deprived of? They were deprived of their life. I heard that this country, there is laws, and every I had to be dotted for the case, and every T had to be crossed. But this country of laws, they were not followed for the girls. The streets of Laredo are being cleaned and getting rid of you. You are the filth of the streets of Laredo. I have something in common with you, though. I too believe in death sentence. I too feel justice needs to be served by death, and that is by killing you. No more tax dollars should be spent on you, on your meals, your housing, your medical bills when you get sick in jail. The only good of you now really is to donate your organs, if anybody would even want them.
Hold on, I want to just real quick. Let me just say something. I understand why people feel the way that they do, but I'm just going to leave it at that.
I'm Shirley's older cousin. She was my older cousin. I stand here in front of you to let you know that Shelly and this girls were not alone. You said that Shelly and these girls were nothing. You said they were trash. You said many harsh words. First, these girls did not do drugs because they were evil. They did not do drugs because they wanted to get high.
Say some really nasty stuff about these women.
I'm a psychiatric registered nurse. I study this type of human behaviors. These girls, the drugs they were self-medicating. They were using drugs to cope with life problems. They were lacking the proper coping skills. They needed help. What you did was not helping them. It was not cleaning the streets of Laredo. I hope that one day you can see. I hope one day you can see that you did wrong, and I hope one day you can see how many families you have.
I'm Brenda. He said that youngest child. I was 14 years old when he took my mom away. I was immature. I couldn't understand and comprehend the situation. And real honesty, I wanted you to feel my pain. Real pain. You robbed me from meeting my mother and getting to know her as a person. Yes, my mom was she was a drug addict, a prostitute. She maybe didn't mean nothing to y'all. She meant everything to me. And you robbed her from me getting to know her as a person because she wasn't just that. She really wasn't. And that's okay. She lived the way she lived. That's her problem. That's her lifestyle. Yes, we get it. But fast forward, I'm 18 now. I haven't gotten closure, and I'm not sure I ever will. I've struggled with a lot coming to this age, anger mostly. I wish I could make you feel pain, to be honest. And I hope one day you do get the pain you deserve. It's like it made me go numb to this point. I don't feel sadness. I'm mad. I'm real mad. But I can't be angry no more. I can't. So I forgive you. Like my mama said, God forgives you and He loves you. And I know deep down you hate yourself for murdering her. You even said it in your confession and everything. Trust me when I say what she said is going to be on your mental for the rest of your life. She was a compassionate person. She loved people. She really did. She loved her brother. She loved her tia. She loved everybody. She loved everybody. And even after you killed her, what she said, she wanted to help you. She wanted to help you. You were suicidal? Who was there? My mom. My mom tried to help you. That's not okay. That's not okay, bro. And she was everything to me. For a fact, I know she loved her children, but her lifestyle and demons took over. And speaking for my siblings, and you, Juan, cheated us out of it.
Right.
Ever getting to hear her side of the story on why she gave us an understanding on what made her into the person she was. I know I said I forgive you, but deep down it's not for you. It's really not. It's for me to find peace of mind. Karma is a big thing, and your karma is just only starting from here. Trust me, you're not gonna make it in there. I hope you don't. And you will suffer. In my heart, I know. I know you will not make it in there. And surely you know your day is coming up. And then God bless you and your family, because you tore your family apart just like you tore ours. And you will suffer. Promise you won't make it in there. As the Humberto, hermano, please. Okay, Janelle, his youngest sister. As the youngest sibling, I never thought I'd be going through this experience right now. It's a lot of emotion. You probably don't know. Because you don't know it.
Aww.
It's like losing a sibling. On September 15th of 2018, a piece of me left unexpected. Everything went blank. Nothing sad enough. But she knew how to fight back. She wasn't afraid. I had to go to her because I couldn't have transgender. We all thought. But after finding out it was you, Juan David Ortiz, you left me with no words. You had everything in life as a border patrol agent. How could you? Why didn't you put up a fight against Janelle? I guess not so tough, right? You had to end her life. What triggered you to go through it? Like if there were dogs, taking them on a cruise and then thinking it was? Because you weren't doing anyone a favor by cleaning up the streets. It was not your duty. My sister and her friends weren't trash for you to go do what you did. You don't know the love they still had at home. No matter what lifestyle they chose to live or battles they had, they were loving. They still had kids to go home to. I still can't find the words to say, but this has impacted our lives and the community. Foremost, I'm not the same person I was. I had a smile before getting that dramatic call that changed my whole life. I used to be full of life. I was looking forward to meet with Janelle to register for college. She always loved accompanying me everywhere. Sadly, I don't get to hear that no more. nor her reminders to keep my head up high and that I'll always be safe while she's alive. As I'm here talking and expressing my feelings of how affected not just me but other families, I just can't seem to stay mad forever about it. I'm mad at the fact that you gave your word to protect the border and serve the people, yet you betrayed your badge in the system. We're all grieving. I just don't know how I will forgive someone who showed no remorse and never put yourself in this situation growing up. But in order to move on with my life, God says otherwise. I can't question him because he has his reasons, but I know Janelle would have fought hard. I don't have hate towards you. I just hate the fact that you didn't have a heart while doing it. As we suffer these past years, you deserve to suffer the consequences. I don't desire nothing bad towards you, but me. Just this sir. Because what you caused was nothing pretty. My sister is gone, and so are her friends. You are still breathing, but I have faith, and I believe you will get what you deserve. I pray your family doesn't go what we went through. They're not to blame, but you took for life in the most common way.
Well, the state has to.
Okay, I'm going to remand the defendant to the custody of the sheriff's department at this time. Court adjourned. I need someone to take.
Okay. So what I was going to say is, I know that the families, that this was a source of contention between the victims' families, because capital murder in Texas, we have very, very strict laws. Okay. And typically, and initially, the death penalty was on the table for this case. But I think that they didn't want to take the chance, and they were probably right to do it this way. They didn't want to take the chance to with the death penalty, with the questions surrounding the confession, and not that the confession, that the things that were said in the confession were false, but because that's not their argument. What their argument is that they shouldn't have been able to use the confession because it was made under duress, essentially, right? So they wanted and there's when you get sentenced to the death penalty, you have automatic appeals. So where you saw at the end there, after he adjudicated him guilty and sentenced him to life without the possibility of parole, and then they talked about the appeals, that doesn't, it's a little different when you're on death row. They're automatic. So anyway, I think that that's what happened. And the fact of the matter is, he's a law enforcement officer going to prison. So there's that. And I wanted to talk a little bit about this, about Texas and the way that Texas laws are written because of Athena Strand's case. Okay. I saw somewhere, and I can't even remember where, that there is a petition going around on like change.org to get to have the guy that is charged with Athena's murder given the death penalty. Well, the thing about that is this. First of all, change.org isn't going to move the DA in this case. Okay, number one. But number two, actually, this is probably should be number one because it's the most important. Years and years ago, when George W. Bush was our governor of Texas, he signed into a law that anybody who unalives a child under the age of 12 years old, might have even been 10, it's an automatic capital crime and it's automatic capital punishment. Could that change? Sure. Is it likely to change? No. Is a change.org petition necessary? Also, no. And it will have absolutely no impact. But what will happen is people will sign that petition thinking that they're doing a good thing. And it's not that they're doing a bad thing, but let me tell you, it has no impact. All that's going to happen is change.org is going to collect your information, and that's it. I promise. I mean, I grew up in Texas. I remember, and I feel like he signed that into law. I cannot remember what case it was that pushed him to do that. But it's not necessary. So I just want you guys to if you see the petition, if you want to sign it, right? Just be careful and make sure that you look through the whole thing and check any boxes related to your privacy. That's all I would suggest. I mean, I think that I understand why people are. I'm outraged. I'm completely outraged. It's a baby. She's 7 years old. Anytime anybody's unalived, it's despicable, but it's particularly heinous when it's a child, especially a 7-year-old, for Pete's sake. But I mean, that was a really good thing that he did when as our governor, and I understand. I'm disgusted and saddened. It breaks my heart to even just for a second imagine what she how scared she must have been, really. How terrified and confused. Poor little thing. Poor kid. It's terrible. It's awful. But that's the way that Texas rolls. So the only way that they could potentially, would the death penalty be off the table for this guy, is if through evaluation it is found that he's not guilty by reason of insanity or mental defect. But let me assure you of this, and I don't know anything about this guy other than like the stuff that they've shown the stuff from Facebook. That's about it. Like obviously something is deeply, deeply wrong with this person. Okay. That's clear. But the standard in Texas for somebody to be found not guilty by reason of insanity or mental defect is astronomically high. In fact, it is so high that the one person on this planet that I actually truly with all my heart believe was not guilty by reason of insanity or mental defect, Andrea Yates, didn't even qualify for the insanity defense. The only reason that she is where she is now, which is in a mental health facility. It's a state run. It's prison. And she's eligible for parole, bless her heart. And she never applies. She says she wants to stay exactly where she is. And that's night, Amelia. Thanks for hanging out. She's the only person. And the only reason she ended up there is because of an appeal. So, yeah. She Andrea Yates, Heather, is that what you're saying? Is that what you're talking about? She was the monster for sure. I do believe that Andrea Yates did what she did because of postpartum psychosis. She tried to get help many times. And that case is tragic and it's sad. And I will probably always believe on some level her husband, Rusty Yates, bears culpability in that case because the doctors told her or told him that her getting pregnant again would be detrimental to her mental health. And she was on birth control. And he said that the Lord told him that they needed to have one more, and she went off of her birth control and she got pregnant again with their youngest. And then yeah, I mean, I think that Andrea Yates, her case could have been completely avoided. And I think it speaks to a lot of like our the way that society treats mental health and the stigma around it. And but yeah, she is the only person that I think really and truly qualifies that I've ever seen for not guilty by reason of insanity or mental defect, because she, unlike like Jeffrey Dahmer, when they were trying to decide whether or not he was insane at the time, Jeffrey Dahmer went through extensive things to try to hide his crime, to avoid being captured, right? Andrea Yates didn't. She called 911 and she waited for them. Well, let me think about that. Yes, she is the one that called 911, and then her mother-in-law got to the house and also called 911, but she didn't try to hide it. Mm-mm. So, I just think it's, I think it's, but I will say this. I really think that this was the right verdict for Ortiz. And I think that the DA made the right call on removing the death penalty from this case. Because I think it makes things, I do think that the jury would have deliberated a little bit longer, and the fact that the last thing they asked for was his confession tells me that on some level, what the defense attorney said about that confession, they were pondering it. And but anyway, so I think what we're going to do tomorrow night is have some fun, maybe do a roast. I think we need it. And even though I just did one with Christine on Sunday, we'll do another one. Probably be a solo mission. I don't know. Sorry, you guys didn't read it on. Oh, sorry. Excuse me. Whew. But maybe I can get Dr. B up here. Maybe not. If I can't, I can't. But if I can't get Dr. B, it'll just be me roasting. So I know that might like deduct some excitement points. But I do think after all this, you're right, Sam. I think a good laugh is needed. And because we've been hit with a lot of really, really just sad and tragic cases this last few weeks, at the end of November with the Idaho 4. And I'm very curious about that statement that police issued about this Hyundai Elantra that they're looking for, about what that's about, why they're looking for it, because I think I have to read the statement again, but to me, when I read it the first time, it actually doesn't sound like they're looking for a suspect. It actually sounds like they're maybe looking for a witness. But we'll see. So oh my gosh. I'm so sorry, you guys. I never do this. I hate y'all. I hate it when I don't want to make you guys yawn too, and it's rude to yawn in your ear. I apologize. But I'm going to say goodbye for this evening. And I will see you guys back here tomorrow. Make sure you guys have liked the stream and set your notifications to all. I'm curious about it, Heather, whatever, Well, you're right, Shmita. They don't usually tip off a suspect like this. But my guess is it's simply a witness. but I'd be curious to see what comes out. You know what I mean? But I think it's a witness. So yeah. Anyway, and the other thing I wanted to say is I saw some something on, was it Law and Crime or Court TV? Now I can't remember, but they were talking about how like they sounded like shocked that there are not security cameras around a fraternity. I mean, I don't, isn't that part of the deal with a fraternity, is that it's somewhat secretive? It's part of the allure. It's like, brotherhood for life, but I don't know. I don't understand why people, I don't know. Maybe I was shocked that they were shocked. Who knows? The last few mornings I've been waking up extra salty, so I might be part of it too. Who knows? But anyway, I'm curious to see how this is all going to shake out. So I will bid you a fond farewell for tonight. Thank you guys all for being here, and I will see you all tomorrow evening for a roast. All right, bye you guys. Hey, if you have any okay, Heather. Yeah. All right. I'm going to have to look into it because I've never really paid much attention to like sororities or Greek life or fraternities or anything like that, other than when they like made the news for hazing or Animal House or Lifetime movies. It's the only time I ever really paid attention. But I will say this, and then I'll end up for reals. I know that me personally, I'm kind of curious about the fact that some of the way that they're talking about the crime scene sort of reminds me of Black Christmas, and that's all I'm going to say about that. But somebody else, I can't remember who said Scream, and specifically Scream 2 because it was at a college, but I'm going with Black Christmas because it was all in a single house, where Scream was spread out over the campus. So there you go. Anyway, good night, you guys. Have a great rest of your Wednesday night, and I'll see you tomorrow. All right. Thanks again for being here. Bye.